Welcome back, everyone, to Mindful Leadership Beyond Borders. Our guest today is Kenny Stoddart from Florida,
Hmm.
and we could be here for hours on this particular discussion. But two things we talked about during the pause was with young athletes and also with corporate leaders. Like we are expected to do great things. So parents and media, for example, put so much pressure on our athletes, and you watch them like if hockey player or let's say an Olympic skater or something like that, if they don't make the cut, the media is all over them, right? And you
Yeah.
can imagine how they feel inside if they are not strong, if they don't have an iron mind,
Yeah.
to pay attention to really to know who they really are inside. They could get lost in what is happening with the public. And Raj said even society puts pressure on these people. So what do you do when you get an athlete who has been kind of, I don't know, brainwashed is the wrong word, but they're kind of going down the wrong path in terms of really, and they're listening to, their parents and the media and society, and they're
Yeah.
getting lost. Their identity is getting lost. What do you say?
Yeah.
What do you do with them?
Yeah. This is a tough one because parents want their kids to be great athletes. There's a lot of money and
Yeah,
time and years invested in it.
yeah,
And when it comes to an end, sometimes it's not at the right time for everybody, but the athlete could be burned out. And, it's a tough time for everybody because, you know, expectations, for example, if, you're a teenage athlete and your parents have put these expectations, but you don't feel like fulfilling them, you know, my mentality is like I've let my parents down. That's tough. That's a tough one to deal with, and I think that
yeah,
that's
yeah.
a that's an unrealistic expectation. And I had the opposite. I had my parents had no expectations of me. They just wanted me happy and healthy and to be a good person. And that's generic, but it's true. And then, but I also see the other side of it, and I see uh, you know, so what do I do? I have to spend a few minutes talking to that student athlete, that to find out, what truly is the root cause, because sometimes it's different than, what is being perceived or what, and having an understanding of that, and then, really trying to be relatable, because I have been in that situation. Again, I didn't have the expectations put on me by my parents. There was someone else that put them on me, and it was me. And that's another huge thing, that these were
Oh,
very
yeah.
unrealistic expectations that I put on myself. And
Hmm.
so I like to understand kind of where, there's no one trick solution to that type of problem without talking to someone and understanding both, just to get a kind of a lay of the land, a state of the union, if you will, because then you have something to work with. If it's an identity issue, if it's a coaching issue, if it's a issue with pressure, or you're not on the right team, and these are big decisions and challenges for youth in their very important developmental years, when their brains are developing at a rapid pace, and all of a sudden they have negativity and anxiety at an age where they should not. Um, I Another example, I had two interns work for me this summer, and both of them are Division 1 athletes in college. One is a swimmer, one's a football player. But, one of them had to switch schools halfway through freshman year because he didn't feel like he was in the right spot. And that is a big decision for an 18-year-old to make. He wanted to
Mm.
go to a school where he thought he might have a better chance of playing, and I have I have commended him on numerous occasions because he made that decision himself. He handled it. I mean, obviously his parents were very much involved, but it's tough because you don't want to push. Parents don't want to push. They don't want to, they want to see. And that's what I like to do. And we want to understand. We want these young adults to start thinking about what's best for them and then how it ties into their current athletic situation. I'm never going to discourage. I'm never going to say like you need to, settle down or take, be less competitive or anything wild like that. That's not anything about the Iron Mind. Um, the Iron Mind is doing all of those things that I talked about while setting boundaries, while making sure that we're thinking with our mind and making sure that, these things, these decisions, even though we're 17, 18, 19, 20 years old, have a huge weight on the future of our. And I'm here to tell you, like the decisions that I made when I was at that age are still playing a role in how my life is playing out now at 52 in a very positive way because, I chose at a young age to be a networker, if you will, or chatty or introduce myself to people. And now I have one of the nicest, healthiest networks of people that I cherish. It's one of my greatest assets. But those are the things that I don't think there's many teenagers thinking about, setting up a LinkedIn account, and some of them are, but more of them need to be. And those are the things about like, so I know I'm getting a bit off track, but just the student athlete thing and the pressure from the parents is something that's very close to me. And I hate to see when it gets really bad, the way these young athletes burn out and really go down a path that's quite the opposite of what they were intended to do.
Yeah. So, um, just yesterday, my husband and I were watching the news, and they talked about one hockey player who is now making 8 million US dollars a year, right?
Yeah, Patrick
Like
Kane. Yeah.
that's big money, right?
Yeah.
And and so, I am concerned about some of these athletes who are being pressured by money. And I love what Raj said earlier about getting them to focus on their purpose
Yeah.
instead. If they have a very profound purpose, then okay, make that kind of money. That's fine. But don't lose yourself in the money, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, mentioned that he, is a tennis fan, and I think that one of the most incredible and real world examples is one of the best tennis players of all time, Roger Federer.
Oh yeah.
Um, I mean, he's been obviously just a first class athlete and gentleman all of
Yeah.
his life,
Mm.
everything but one of the most amazing things that he did, and a lot of people don't know about, is, as he was getting close to retirement, he started a shoe company, and it's the number one tennis shoe company in the world right now. The On brand, it was. So the story goes, and I'll get it wrong, but whoever was his, I think it was Nike, but whoever was his previous shoe manufacturer, basically, like his time was up. He didn't have a sponsor anymore. So he decided to
Mm.
use like he's from Switzerland. I think it was a Swiss company that had like used tire parts or tires, like the rubber, and they became On sneakers. I'm wearing them right now, but it's it's become $1 billion sneaker company. He's made far more money in sneakers than he ever did in tennis, like massive amounts. Like
Wow.
it's
Wow.
he is, and it's this is the type of thing like Roger didn't just decide to buy a sneaker company. He's been always
Mm.
thinking business throughout his tennis career, I'm sure, right? And
Ah.
thinking about what happens after tennis, even though money was probably never a concern. He's also a father. He's got at least two kids, probably more. I don't know, but um, he's an iron mind. I mean, he just defines it to the T. But um, that's just an example of what we talked about with these athletes. That's the one out of the 10. For every one Roger, there's nine that unfortunately don't go down that path, or they, obviously he was one of the best, but that applies to athletes of all natures. It doesn't have to be
Mm.
financially. It needs to be mentally, physically, how you approach your career afterwards.
Mm. So, our final question here, we've been discussing athletes, but I know you work
Mhm.
with high performance leaders as
Yeah,
well. And the pressure that senior leaders and middle management leaders have in the workplace is enormous.
it is.
And
Yeah.
what words of wisdom do you have for them? I love the T-shirt behind you. Wisdom more precious than rubies. I think that's what it says,
Precious and
right?
rubies.
Yeah, yeah,
It is, and
yeah.
it is, and wisdom is the most precious. That's biblical. It can be used in any, but
Hmm.
truly, wisdom. Pressure is one of the components that was one of the things that caused me a lot of pressure takes up unnecessary space, right? So if you're feeling pressure, the last thing
Ah.
you want to do is go work out, right? Example, if you're feeling
Hmm.
if you're under tremendous pressure, the last thing you're doing is getting a good night's sleep. The last thing you're doing is thinking about eating healthy. So when you're under pressure, a lot of other things sacrifice, right?
Mm. Yeah.
This is not a good formula. Like this is what I tell people. This is what happens to me. It doesn't end well. This is where you stop counting how much you've consumed in a night or how hungover you were. It just becomes regular because
Mm-hmm.
pressure is one of those bad things, right? So
Mm.
with the Iron Mind, this is again, without getting, but this is what I like to avoid because pressure almost killed me. I was there.
Ah. Okay.
Pressure creates burnout, creates all these other things.
Hmm.
And then I realized that I can still operate as a very high achieving leader, businessman, entrepreneur, founder, speaker, call it what you want, at a very, very high level without that level of pressure. There's pressure. I'm running a business, I'm in school. There's but I love what I do. So putting some passion, finding your identity. I mean, it all comes back to like if you are
Yeah.
doing what you love to do, meaning your identity is aligned, I promise you you're under less pressure. And pressure causes high blood pressure. The things. It doesn't end well. So there's so many words of wisdom. The one would be taking care of yourself. I mean, and again, that is such a broad. So I say take care of yourself, not only physically, not mentally, spiritually, emotionally, with your relationships. These are the core
Mm-hmm.
Iron Mind things because then work is better, the pressure's down, things are better at home. And again, when I say we're all good at a lot of these things, but we might not be good at handling pressure, or we might not be good in our relationships. So when I work with people, the high achievers, we try to figure out if pressure is a leading indicator, which it is a lot of times. I want to lower that pressure by adding value to some of the other things. I'm a big fan of time management, and people say, "Oh, I do time management." No, you don't. We need to figure out what's going to free up, an extra 3 hours of your week by making some boundaries, and those
Mm-hmm.
are little
Right
things.
on.
Those are my
Right.
words of wisdom, if you will.
That's good. So, what would be one final piece of advice that you would have for corporate leaders and students, athletes, even
The same,
stay-at-home moms and dads? What would you
every
say?
the same applies to everybody. It doesn't matter if
Mm,
you're stay-at-home mom or dad, grandma.
mm.
Don't be afraid to ask for help. Doesn't mean you need to call a
Ah.
therapist. Doesn't mean you need to hire a coach. Don't be afraid to
Mm,
call a friend if you need to. Don't be afraid to have a
mm,
conversation with someone. Reach out to a friend that you haven't talked to in a while. Because
mm,
if you continue to bottle things up, they become worse. I know that. I did that for years and it
mm,
was, but the little things can be talked through. The little things can be laughed about after you have a good conversation with someone you
mm.
haven't talked to in a while. If things are worse than that, then go to the next level. But know that there's people out there like myself that are sitting here. I oftentimes take calls from people who are not in their best spot, and I'm here for that. I am here for that
Yeah,
because I was there and I did not
yeah,
have anybody to call. And
right.
I'm not saying that I didn't. I have a beautiful family, my mother, like friends, but even my friends were like out of like, I became bothersome to them and I didn't want to reach out and have them carry my burden. They have their own issues. I
Mm,
faced all of those things
mm.
and I
Wow.
still ask for help. So don't be afraid to ask if you need it. Call me, email
Mm.
me, I'll tell you where to go.
Well, listen, we're going to put your coordinates up on
Thank you.
yes, on the video so that people can give you a call. And I'm very touched by your humility
Thank
and
you.
by your spirit. I mean, I'm sure people just love to talk to you because
It
they know
is,
that, yeah,
yeah, it is
you've been
the
there.
old Kenny back. That's what the people closest to me were praying about when I was not at my best. They said, I wish we could just get the old Kenny back. And that's what's back. And it is
Wow. Oh
beautiful.
my
Yeah.
gosh. Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you,
Yeah.
sir. What a great discussion.
It's my
Really
pleasure. I
appreciate you
look
being
forward to
here.
seeing you all soon. Take care. Have a nice
Okay.
day.
Bye bye.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Bye bye.